The impact of religion and Sufism on arts in Sudan. Modern poetry and poets. Muhammad Wad Badi. The audience, it gives me great pleasure welcoming you to this new episode. As part of our series of documentaries that have been dedicated to trace the influence, the impact of religion and Sufism on modern and contemporary Sudanese poets' production. So, in our presence today, one of Sudan's prominent and outstanding poets. In our encounter today, Muhammad Wad Badi. He is one of the giants who engraved his name into the people's memory in letters of light, transforming poetry into a weapon against oppression and words into a bridge between freedom and dignity. Muhammad Saeed Badi, better known as Wad Badi, is a distinguished modern Sudanese poet and a man of steadfast national positions and stances. Wad Badi is considered one of those giants who shaped the features of modern Sudanese poetry, alongside Hamid, Al-Gaddal, Kitayabi and Ashari, along with many others who filled the gallery of the world and remained deeply committed to the people's causes. Together, they form a unique constellation that has illuminated and continues to illuminate the four corners of the homeland, offering warmth and hope to hearts weighed down by hardship. When the world feels unbearably narrow and no refuge remains but the shelter of their poetry. Those modern Sudanese poets have filled and held firmly to the burning core of their people's struggles, did not write from ivory towers, but from within the depths of lived experience. Their verses became a refuge, their voices a source of solace, and their words an open space to breathe in the face of oppression and despair. So the audience, once again, I would like to welcome you to join me traveling across the experience of one of Sudanese modern poets. A poet that known for his struggle to the rights of his people. Unlike his other companions in the path of the struggle, Wad Badi walked the same road, the road of standing with the poor and the ordinary people, expressing their concerns and hopes and embodying the pulse of the Sudanese street in its truest form. So two previous episodes have been devoted to Hamid and to Abdelkader al-Kitayabi, and together we experience with them the sincere and the true words against injustice, expressing the grievances of their homeland masses. However, our encounter with the poet Wad Badi will go on as a continuation, as I told, for the series of documentaries that I intend behind it to seek and to trace the influence, the impact of the language of religion and the language of tasawwuf. So within the ode or the poem that the poet writes, we experience his influence with the language of religion and Sufism at the very same time. And this is what is behind the idea of introducing those modern Sudanese poets mainly to non-Arabic speakers, just to show one of the profound influence and impact of religion and tasawwuf on the modern Sudanese poets and poetry. And such influence, as we have experienced in many episodes, is not confined only to modern poetry. We have presented the influence in Sudanese novel, Sudanese short story. We furthermore experience the influence on the visual arts. Moreover, we experience the influence on Hagiba songs, in addition to influence in archaeology and music. So once again, I would like to tell that our journey with modern Sudanese poets will continue today, and we are very pleased to introduce one of its giants and celebrated poets, Muhammad Wad Badi. About his biography, I would like to inform that less information about his biography is available on internet. And may Allah prolong his life. I didn't being able to found any information that introduce his biography fully, but in this case just I have consulted some websites in which I state that Muhammad Saeed Badi, better known as I told Wad Badi, was born in Salwa area in River Nile state, while his roots tracing back to the northern Sudan, more specifically the region of Al Gurer, part of the Shaigiya land. He possesses a remarkable ability to paint with words, and he has been described by some as, alongside Hamid, among the finest poets writing in Sudanese colloquial Arabic. And what I would like to add about his biography in this regard, what has been known is that he has graduated from the College of Medicine, University of Khartoum. Unlike his companion companion of struggle Hamed. Our poet Wad Badi chose the vernacular to write, to express, to reach to his audience. And his utilization to vernacular Sudanese language not out of inability to use classical Arabic, but out of a deep awareness of its power to reach people's hearts. His poetry thus came alive, vivid, heartfelt, and capable of awakening consciousness and stirring stillness. His verses became messages of resistance, calls for liberation, and banners raised high against tyranny and corruption. You find deep delight in reading Wad Badi's poetry, but if you are fortunate enough to hear him recite or speak, you would wish for him never to stop. And if you happen to sit with him, his presence quietly seeps into your soul, marked by a noble and gentle spirit, a sharp and witty sense of humor, the generosity and chivalry of an authentic son of the land, a genuine concern for others, and a touch of endearing, almost mystical simplicity. He had his well-known moments of brilliance on Sudan's poetry platforms, especially at the University of Khartoum during the late 1970s and early of 1980s, a period many consider the golden era of his poetic production. Later, exile took him to the Gulf states, and people deeply missed his voice. He settled for a very long time in United Arab Emirates. Yet Wad Badi never stopped writing poetry or taking into the stage. His deep connection to a poetic and inspiring environment is clearly evident. An environment in which the beauty of the Sudanese countryside reveals itself in vivid detail. He began writing poetry at an early age, during childhood and youth, and was greatly influenced by the late poet Ismail Hassan. It was as if Ismail Hassan's spirits would inhabit him whenever he wrote or recited poetry before an audience. Wad Badi composed numerous poems reflecting the life of the village. In his work, he often drew contrast between the calm simplicity of rural life and the noise and restlessness of the city, highlighting the wide gap between the values of village communities and those of urban society. Badi, the master of the elegiac poetry. The poet Muhammad Badi became widely renowned for his remarkable distinction in elegiac poetry, to the point that this genre emerged as one of the most defining features of his poetic experience, and among the most deeply affecting on his audience. It is worth noting that the timeless masterpieces he composed in farewell to Sudan's great creative figures. Among them is his elegy for the eminent poet Ismail Hassan, a poem considered one of the finest in modern Sudanese elegiac poetry, marked by its sincerity of emotion, depth of loss, and clarity of expression. He also produced a profoundly moving elegy for his companion in struggle, the poet Muhammad Hassan Salim Hamid. His words were imbued with loyalty and saturated with the sense of loss that transcended the individual, reflecting instead the grief of an entire homeland, mourning a voice that once embodied its living conscious. His poetic tribute extended as well to the poet Muhammad al-Gaddal, where his ability to evoke the lives of the departed shone through in vivid, life-filled language that perceive their presence and resist their absence. Likewise, he mourned the great writer Tayyib Saleh, offering a poem that stood as both a testimony of affection and a recognition of a towering literary figure who helped shape Sudanese and Arab cultural consciousness. In this way, ودبادي's elegies became emotional records that perceive the legacy of these giants, reviving them within the collective memory and affirming that sincere words can overcome absence and grant the departed an enduring, undying presence.
يلقى الدال اخويا الليله كيف قيلت مرقامان نمال من يومك الميلته كم شلت التقيله ولينا كم شيلت سيل يا دمع سيل معزوره كان سيلته يلقى الدال اخوي دمع العيون متحدر يلقى الدال اخوي دمع العيون متحدر هضلمت الضفاف والنيل صبح متكدر حليوم الصغار الشال خريف مبدر زرعوك في حشاها وبكره فرعك خدر. يلقى الدال اخوي يلقى الدال اخوي صبر الغلابه عجنته والساجن بلودك في سجونه سجنته كم وجع عمر الدم في حشاك خزنته والبلد المجوبك بغناك دوزنته. يلقى الدال اخوي قمر الصعيد ما غنى يلقى الدال اخوي قمر الصعيد ما غنى لا شالم بروقه ولا فريع التنى قلبا مشتهيك بعد الرحيل ما تهنى كل ما جابوا سيرتك فيها ياخذ صنع.
يا سلام.
يلقى الدال اخوي يلقى الدال اخوي السمح المعاني سقيتها مرقوا شبابنا فوق البوصل الختيته حارسين التروس إلا السوانك غتيتا يا هزم الظلام ينحت فوق حتيتا. يلقى الدال أخوي قلت الوصية زمان سوا بنبنيه ما بنبنيه بالكيمان.
يا سلام.
لا فايدان الزنجي ولا بني قحطان قبيلتنا الوطن وحزبنا يا السودان. قبيلتنا الوطن وحزبنا يا السودان.